So my name is Martin Gummert. I'm an agriculture engineer from Germany, but working in the Philippines with IRRI since 1990. And I'm in charge at IRRI with all the projects that are dealing with mechanization and post-harvest. With major objectives to, in the post-harvest area, to reduce post-harvest losses and maximize income from post-harvest operations. Personally, for myself, I started in 2003 working on hermetic storage and a joint project between IRRI and GrainPro, evaluating the hermetic cocoons and also then jointly developing the super bag. But IRRI has been involved in hermetic storage long before that. So the first trials were done in Cambodia with the cocoons, I think in 1997 or 1998. We are dealing with all the different post-harvest value chains, whether it's more traditional ones where the farmers do a lot of post-harvest operations, or the more modernized ones where combine harvesting occurs, and then often the traders buy the crop directly from the field and do all the post-harvest operations. And so we are looking at all the different losses at all the stages in that different systems. And it depends a little bit, obviously, how the post-harvest system looks like. But the major problems in post-harvest are drying, delays in drying, and improper drying and storage. And in storage, it's depending on how long you store, under what conditions, the losses can be extremely high. And that includes the quantitative losses, so loss in volume or weight, and also the qualitative losses, which translate into a loss of income. Well, that's a combination. I mean, when I say proper storage, or we often call it best practice, that involves certain technologies and practices. And that includes, for example, that you prevent the grains from re-wetting in the tropics, that there's really a danger of the grains absorbing water from the ambient air if they're not protected. It includes protecting them from pests. And yeah, there are different technologies and management options how you can do that. And hermetic storage is one of them, which in particular can be applied in a very flexible way on a very different scales as well. Some technologies like silos, for example, just are feasible for very large volume operations. Well, it's mostly it's a high losses. So physical losses, you lose money because you sell less grains. It also has an impact on food security of a country, for example, if you lose a lot of grains in storage. And then quality losses, I mean, you usually, if you have grains that are spoiled or affected negatively in quality, then you get a lower price in the markets. And in the worst case, you cannot use it for human consumption anymore. You can only use it for feeding chicken or animals. And so those are the major reasons. And the losses in storage can be really, depending on the situation, they can be quite high. We had some cases where they can be up to 30% if you don't store properly, and you, like, for example, you have very adverse weather conditions and so on. Basically, with hermetic storage, because you protect the grains from the humid air, you protect the grains from pests, and you create a artificially modified atmosphere inside the container, which also kills the insects that might be still inside. You maintain the quality at optimum level. So in terms of milling recovery, typically what we find in trials where you sort of assume normal duration of the grains before milling of around 10% more head rise recovery. But that, again, it depends really in how long you store. And if you store only very short, you don't get so many brokens. And in terms of sensory quality, eating quality, and so on, we maintain the optimum that you can have. And also that also applies for seeds. Seeds lose the germination very quickly under humid tropical conditions, depending on the variety. Between 2 or 6 months, the germination can be very, very low already. More serious with modern varieties, not so much with traditional ones. But in hermetic storage, you can safely store the seeds for 8-9 months, which you need to basically use them for the next crop in the next season, without losing germination. And so that's the only technology really that is affordable that can do that. At IRRI, we have stored grains for 2 years in a cocoon. And after that, there was some slight change in the cooking quality, but nothing that a consumer would notice. You only would notice that with when you have a sophisticated laboratory equipment. But otherwise, the grains were perfectly fine after 2 years. And for other, like for seeds, I already mentioned it, you can easily bridge the gap between from one crop. Maybe next season you grow a different variety because it's from dry season to wet season. But for the next matching season, you can easily store the seeds that long. As I said, for the traditional systems, it really depends. It depends how bad they are. But I think what you can sort of communicate under typical conditions for rice millers, at least 10% more head rice recovery after, because millers usually they mill the rice within one harvest to the next, but then also for aromatic rice like jasmine rice and basmati rice, hermetic storage also maintains the aroma, and which an open storage you use very, very quickly. If you consider a silo, the minimum is something like for it to be economically feasible, I would say something between 600 and 1,000 tons. So that scale of operation you need in order to break even, and then the bigger you get, obviously, the lower the investment cost per ton becomes. But then also you have to put up that infrastructure, and so it's a long-term investment. When you talk about hermetic storage, that's very flexible. So you can set that up in a warehouse, you can set it up outside, outdoors if you like, and you can move it around. If you need it somewhere else, you can move it there. So there are a lot of advantages besides just the cost. So in terms of cost, hermetic storage, I think from what we are looking at, depending again in the country, it's something like between $100 per ton, maybe $250 per ton for small capacity sizes, to less than $100 per ton investment cost. And when you talk about physical structure like silos, whether it's indoor or outdoor, they are a lot more expensive. Everybody can do his own calculation of that, I think, because most smallholder farmers keep their own seeds, which they use then in the next season, and they have tremendous problems with the germination there. And there the benefit is the most obvious one. If you use hermetic storage, you can reduce the seed rate, which is in countries sometimes it's 120 to 200 kilos per hectare. You can reduce that to 60 or even less kilos per hectare, and then it's very obvious to everybody they save so many kilos when they use hermetic storage, and they can come up with a very quick back on the napkin calculation, which shows them this is really economical for them. When it's about storing grains for consumption, it's much more difficult to convince people, in particular farmers, because they don't actually know what they are losing. Nobody measures it, and they have their basically their grains in granaries. They take out things from there, so they are not aware that they're often losing 10, maybe 15% in their storage. So if you don't know what you are losing, you just look at what you have to pay for the additional system. So usually when you do your economics, it turns out that hermetic storage is economically feasible, but it's not visible. So there needs to be a lot of effort to convince the farmers and provide that sort of data to farmers if you expect them to use hermetic storage for grains for consumption. It fits in everywhere. I think a typical example is cooperatives. So often the farmers are grouped in cooperatives or farmers groups, sometimes also informal farmers groups, and they sometimes then store the grains for their members. It could be inventory storage or any other sort of community storage, and their hermetic storage fits in very well. I mean, we had worked with probably around 10,000 bags, super bags, with farmers over different countries, over different years and projects. And the farmers immediately, you let them store some seeds, they immediately see the benefits. If they then seed one part of the plot with hermetically stored grains, they get much more crop establishment and so on compared to the traditionally stored grain. So So that is very, very obvious, and it's a very good learning for everybody. The other big problem is make people understand what hermetic actually means. Hermetic means that you modify the atmosphere by using a very gas-tight plastic material, and so you get a modified atmosphere inside the bag. Because a lot of people think they can just use an ordinary bag, a PE bag, and that gives them the protection from water, but not the protection from pests. And so extremely important that the people understand that principle, because otherwise they will move on to something else, which is available locally, easily locally available. So that generally there is a global trend towards better quality. And so even in the local markets, you see that basically supermarkets, the supermarket revolution and so on. So consumers are asking for better quality and become more quality conscious. And you basically you cannot sell low quality rice to many consumers, urban consumers, for example, anymore. And so that's one factor where basically hermetic storage can fit in, because it guarantees the quality. And the other one is value adding. So things like certification. There's a lot of talk about BMP, best management practice, and there is a sustainable rice platform that looks at developing the certification for sustainably produced rice and so on, and looking at the markets for that and so on. So I think there is a trend from the market side towards better quality. Another issue is traceability. A lot of the consumers want to know where the rice comes from. And for all those, you need certain ways of certification and quality control as well. The other change that is more on the practical side of the production of the value chain is moving from bag handling to bulk handling. So that is mostly driven by the combine harvesters, like in Vietnam and Cambodia now, and also in the Philippines increasingly. The harvesting is done mostly by combine harvesters. Also in Pakistan and in India, they are coming in quite quickly. So that leads to basically different problems. You get more crop at shorter time with often higher moisture content from the harvesting into the value chain. So that requires better drying. But it also shifts the operations from the farm level to the industry. Then I would say it's not the super bags anymore, then it's really cocoons that are the right products to be promoted there. We were here in the Philippines, we were involved very much with the so-called heirloom rice project, working in the mountain province, trying to encourage the farmers to stay growing rice. And in that project, the idea was basically to produce high quality heirloom varieties, meaning special varieties with high quality traits, and producing them for export markets, and also then later for the quality markets in Manila. And in that project, it's really farmers in the mountainous areas, individual farmers in groups, and they for them the super bag is an obvious solution that fits in because of the low volumes that they are dealing with as individuals and so on. But then you are looking at the other markets, and there it's going to be more like the cocoons. I did an assessment of a project looking at organic rice value chain development in Laos several years ago already. And basically there the post-harvest operations would happen at sort of small to medium rice mills. And we were looking at how do they need to change in order to be able to mill certified organic rice. And they would not use super bags, they would use cocoons. So it depends. There's not one recipe, one size fits all. It depends really in your value chain, I would say. Yeah, one thing I can add, I think for organic rice, hermetic storage is actually ideal. So because that's the only technology that really provides you with the insect control without using chemicals. So I do think organic rice is one of the niche markets. One of the markets where hermetic storage fits in very well, but it's a niche market. So it's not going to be a single-digit percent point in the future, I think. I do believe hermetic storage is a very feasible technology which is very flexible in terms of scale and applications for safely storing your grains and your seeds, which you cannot do with many of the other technologies. But the message to the extension workers would really be try to work with all the different stakeholders in introducing the technology. So the technology is not the problem. It's really the introduction. It's a supply chain for the technology. It's creating awareness. It's doing the training of the end users to use it properly and so on, which is really the bottleneck. The technology is proven. It enables you to safely store grains and seeds, maximize your returns, financial returns, and maintain the germination. But the challenge is the introduction of the technology. So everybody is needed, and I would appeal to every extension worker, every representative from the private sector and so on to join hands and to make this technology successful in